Okay, guys, again, I apologize that this was not done in class, but with our internet issues, it was not possible for us to do, so I'm going to do it now and upload it. My girls are singing in the background, so I apologize if you hear them. But we are talking today about exponents and radicals in Chapter P, Section 2A. So when we talk about repeated multiplication, it can be written in what's called exponential form. On the left-hand side here, you have repeated multiplication. So you're seeing the same thing being multiplied repeatedly. So I have a times a times a times a times a. Negative 4 times negative 4 times negative 4. 2x times 2x times 2x times 2x. You can write that a simpler way in what's called exponential form. So you have your base, which is the number that's being, or the letter that's being multiplied several times, and then the exponent that tells you how many times. So in this case, a times a times a times a times a could be written as a to the 5th power. Negative 4 times negative 4 times negative 4 can be written as negative 4 to the 3rd power. 2x times 2x times 2x times 2x can be written as 2x to the 4th power. This would be the case here. A is going to be a real number, and n is a positive integer. Then you could go backwards. If this said like 4 to the 3rd power, you could write that as 4 times 4 times 4. If you had x to the 3rd power, that would be the same as x times x times x. And we read it as maybe 4 to the power of 3, or you could say 4 to the 3rd power, or yes. Okay, so in a case where you are multiplying two things together and they have the same base, we have a simplification rule that says when you are multiplying by the same base, you simply keep the base the same and add the exponents together. So in this case, you have x to the 3rd times x to the 4th. Well, your bases are the same, so you keep the base and you add the exponents together, and that's where we get x to the 7th. So let's do some examples here. Here you have b to the 4th and b to the 7th. You're multiplying, same base, so you rewrite the base, then you add the exponents. 7 plus 4 is 11. Here we have two coefficients that we can multiply together. 3 times 4 gives me 12, and then I have both x's. I have a 2 plus the 3 gives me x to the 5th. Negative 3 and 4 is negative 12. I have the same base of x's, so I'm going to take 2 plus 4, and I get 6. Negative 3 times 5 is negative 15. I have two different variables. That's okay, because I have an a here. This is to the 3rd power. This is to the 1st, so 3 plus 1 is 4. And then I have b to the 2nd and b to the 4th, so 2 plus 4 gives me 6. In this case, we don't have any coefficients, which is perfectly fine. I have m here, and I'm multiplying it by an m. So I have m to the 2 plus, remember there's a 1 there, so that'd be 3rd power. And then I have an n and an n here, so I have n to the 1st plus 4 gives me n to the 5th power. And then you multiply your coefficients. 3 times 4 is 12. I have y to the 3rd and y to the 4th. Well, same base, we're going to add our exponents. 3 plus 4 is 7. And then I have z to the 1st times z to the 2nd. 1 plus 2 gives me 3. All right, same kind of problem, just a little longer. Again, we're going to look at coefficients first. So this is a negative 1 times 3 times negative 2. Negative 1 times 3 is negative 3 times negative 2 is going to give you a positive 6. I have x, x, and x. So I have x to the 2nd, x to the 1st, and x to the 3rd. If I add 2 plus 1 plus 3, I get x to the 6th. And then I have my y. 3, 2, and 1. So 3 plus 2 plus 1 gives me y to the 6th. Same base that you're multiplying, add those exponents. So here I have 5 times negative 3 times negative 1. 5 times negative 3 is negative 15 times negative 1 is going to give me a positive 15. Now I have two variables that I'm looking at. I have a's and b's. We like to work and keep our variables in alphabetical order. So I'm going to go ahead and account for the a's. This right here has a to the 0 power. We'll talk about that in a little bit because that would be just 1. But I have 2 a's here and 3 here. So same base, we're going to add exponents. 2 plus 3 is 5. And then I have b. I have 4. So I have b to the 4th b to the first. At multiplying the same basis, so we're going to add. That gives us b to the fifth power. So then we get to a problem like this, and this looks a little different, and I want you guys to understand what this is saying. The letter A, both parentheses do not say the same thing. This first parenthesis says -1 times x squared. The second parenthesis says -x times -x. Notice that that 2 is on the outside of the parenthesis, so that's telling that you have 2 of whatever's inside the parenthesis. So when we simplify this, -1 times x squared is -x squared. And then -x times -x is positive x squared. So when we multiply these together, -1 times 1 is -1. And then same basis, x and x gives you x to the fourth. And we don't write that 1, we would just leave it as -x to the fourth. Second example here, B says the same thing. This says -1 times x cubed, and then this says -x 3 times -x times -x. So this is just going to give me -x cubed times, well, what's -x times -x? Positive x squared, times the negative is going to give me -x cubed. So now I'm going to multiply. Negative times negative gives me a positive. I have the same base of x, so I'm going to add my two exponents. 3 plus 3 gives me 6. So you got to be real careful with the placement, guys, of the negative signs, whether they're inside, outside the parenthesis, and where the exponent is, whether it's inside or outside the parenthesis. So we come to a question like this. This is a little different from what we've been doing because all we've been doing is just multiplying. Now we're going to multiply and then see if we can add. And we have to remind ourselves we can only combine like terms. We can only add or subtract if they have like terms, if the quote-unquote last names are the same. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So the first thing I'm going to do here is multiply 5 and 2. It's going to give me 10. Then I have the x as my base for each of these, so x times x. X to the second times x to the third. I'm going to add my two exponents together. 2 plus 3 is 5. So I have plus. Multiply the coefficients. 3 times 4 is 12. I have x to the first here and x to the fourth here. If I add 1 and 4, I get 5. So now we look at these two terms. Do these have like terms? Are their variables the same? And yes, they are. X to the fifth, x to the fifth. That means you can combine them. If I have 10 x to the fifths, then I have 12. If I put them together, that gives me 22 x to the fifth. All right, down here, same thing. I'm going to multiply my coefficients. So 3 times 5 is 15. And then I have a times a, so it's a to the add your exponents. 5 plus 3 is 8. Minus 6 times 1 is going to give me 6. And then I have my same variable, a times a, so 2 plus 6 is going to give me 8. Can I simplify this anymore? Do these both have the same quote-unquote last names, like terms? Yes. 15 minus 6 is going to give me 9, and their last name or their like term would be a to the 8. Now, the second thing we want to talk about in this lesson is not multiplying bases that are the same, but it's raising a power to a power. So in this case, you have a base, like here is my base of a, and here is my exponent that I'm raising a to. But then I'm taking the whole expression and I'm raising it to an additional power. When you raise a power to a power, you keep the base the same and we multiply exponents. So when you're multiplying same bases, you add exponents. When you raise a power to a power, you multiply. So conversely, if I have 2 or more things inside of a parenthesis and it's raised to a power, you have to distribute that exponent to everything inside of your parenthesis. So in a case like this, I have x to the fourth raised to the fifth. I'm raising a power to a power, so I multiply that number together, and that's where I got my x to the 20th. So let's do some practice problems. I have 2x in parentheses, so it says 2x quantity cubed. That means that 3 needs to be distributed to the 2 and to the x. So what this really says is 2 cubed times x cubed. And you can simplify that. 2 cubed is 8, and then you have x cubed. So again, we're going to distribute to everything inside. This says 2x to the fifth quantity squared. So this is 2 squared times x to the, I'm going to multiply 5 times 2 is 10. So when we simplify, 2 squared is 4. This gives me x to the 10th. So So again, I'm going to take 2 and I'm going to, distribute it. So negative 2 squared times x, raising a power to a power, so it's 10. Negative 2 squared is 4. And then 5 times 2 is 10, so x to the 10th. Again, we're going to distribute our exponent to everything. So I have negative 2 cubed times, when I raise the power to a power, 4 times 3 is 12. So negative 2 cubed is going to give me negative 8, and then x to the 12th. So they come over here. Again, we're going to distribute this exponent of 3 to everything inside. So this gives me negative 3 cubed, x power to a power, 2 times 3 is 6, y power to a power, 5 times 3 is 15. And then we can simplify. Negative 3 cubed is negative 27, x to the 6th, y to the 15th. And then this, if this is written just like this, there's nothing else that you can simplify. But let's just say we put a 2 right out here. Guys, this is not saying negative x squared. This is saying this 2 goes to the negative 1, that's here, to the x, and to the y. So if I square negative 1, that becomes positive, right? I say x squared, and then I have y, raise a power to a power, is to the 4th. So this would just be x squared y to the 4th. If you wanted to look at it as all together here, you could. I'm just wanted to show you. Let me pull it apart for you. So we look at a problem like this, and we have to do some things first in order to get our answer correct. A lot of you want to go ahead and start multiplying, but you can't do that. What you have to do first is simplify. You have to distribute the exponent to everything first on both parentheses before you can then combine. Because think about it. If we use our please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, first thing we're going to do, I have 2 things going on here. I have multiplication and I have exponents. So which one am I going to evaluate first? It's our exponents. So that's why you have to distribute first. So this is 3 cubed. We're raising a power to a power. So 2 times 3 is a to the 6th, b to the 3rd, times 2 squared, raising a power to a power, a to the 3 times 2 is 6, and b squared. So now we can simplify further. 3 cubed is 27, 2 cubed is 4, so when I multiply 27 and 4, I get 108. Then I have a to the 6 and a to the 6, same base. We're going to add exponents. 6 plus 6 is 12. B to the 3rd, b to the 2nd, same base, we're going to add, and 3 plus 2 is 5. All right, same thing here. First thing we're going to do, y'all, is distribute. It's got to go to the coefficient and every variable. Make sure you are on top of that. So this becomes 2 to the 4th, x to the 8th, y to the 12th. Why is it 8 and 12 and not 6 and 7? That's because we're raising a power to a power, so we multiply. So then I have multiple times. Negative x squared is going to give me x squared. And then I have y squared raised to the 2nd power is going to give me y to the 4th. And then now we can combine. So 2 to the 4th power is going to give me 16. Same bases, x and x. So I have x, add the exponents. 8 plus 2 is 10. Y and y. I'm going to rewrite my y because I'm multiplying. And then 12 plus 4 is 16. So 16, x to the 10th, y to the 16th. And here we're not only are we multiplying, but we are also seeing if we can add, if we can combine. So the first thing we need to do is distribute our exponents everywhere. So I have 2 to the 3rd, that's not a good color choice. 2 to the 3rd, x to the 3rd, times x squared, y squared, plus, and then I have 4x squared y squared times negative x cubed. There's no exponents to distribute there. So let's go ahead and simplify over here. 2 cubed is 8. Same base of x's. I have x to the 3rd, x to the 2nd. I'm multiplying, so I'm going to add those together. And then I have my y squared. And then over here, I'm going to go ahead and multiply. So 4 times negative 1 is going to give me negative 4. I have my x's, the same base. We're going to add exponents. 2 plus 3 is 5. And then I have y squared. So now we look to say, okay, there's nothing else I have to multiply. Can I combine? Can I add these together? The only way you can combine is if they have like terms. So look at the last names. This last name is x to the 5th y to the 2nd. This is x to the 5th y to the 2nd. So can we combine these? Absolutely. 8 plus a negative 4 is just going to give you positive 4. And then you have x to the 5th y squared. All right, lastly, we look at this problem and we immediately think, oh my gosh, it's a fraction, it's so hard. It's really not. I just need you guys to really pay attention to what the question is saying. If you have a fraction and it is raised to a power, you need to understand that that power goes to the numerator and the denominator. So this 3 goes to the 3, to the x, to the 2, and to the y. So this becomes 3 to the 3rd, x to the 3rd. 2 to the 3rd, y to the 3rd. And then we simplify. 3 cubed is 27, x cubed. 2 cubed is 8, y cubed. And we always look to see if we can simplify. 27 and 8 don't reduce, so there we go. Now I want you guys to understand the difference between B and D here. The only difference that you see is the parenthesis. All right, I always tell my kids, if you have a negative number, you need to give it a hug. A lot of times if it's in parentheses. What this problem here is saying, because you always evaluate according to PEMDAS. So this is saying, this is a negative 1, and that's raised to the 2nd power. So you would evaluate the power first. You would say negative 4 squared. So 4 squared is 16, so that negative's out there. And then you would multiply it by the negative 1, you get negative 16. Okay? If I looked at D, D is telling me to do what? It's telling me to take negative 4 and negative 4 and multiply it together, which gives me positive 16. So it's really important that you understand the placement of the negative sign and the parenthesis. This one here is saying the same thing. It's saying take negative and multiply it by whatever 4 times 4 times 4 is. We'll multiply together. 4 times 4 is 16 times 4 is 64. And then you multiply it by the negative 1. This gives you negative 64. So be really, really careful with parenthesis placement and where you see things. And then anything, guys, I cannot impress upon you enough, anything you see that is raised to the 0 power equals 1. Write that down. Anything raised to the 0 power equals 1. All right, good job. Make sure you guys get these notes down if you didn't get them today in class, and I will answer homework questions tomorrow, and then we will go on to chapter P2, section B. Thank you.